Welcome to our training video on Southwest Minnesota Arts Council's Art Study Opportunity for Youth Grants for fiscal year 2025, which runs from July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2025.
I'm Carolyn Koska, the Grants Administrator for Southwest Minnesota Arts Council. During this training, you'll learn about Southwest Minnesota Arts Council, the guidelines for this grant program, the resources that are available for you on our website, how to use our online grant system, the application questions you'll need to answer, and the grant process, or what happens after you submit your application. Check out the chapters below if you want to go directly to a particular topic. For now, we'll start out talking briefly about Southwest Minnesota Arts Council.
Southwest Minnesota Arts Council, or SMOC, is a nonprofit organization committed to promoting and encouraging the development of the arts in the 18 counties of Southwest Minnesota by serving as a source of funds and technical services which enable local organizations, educational institutions, and individuals to sponsor, create, and promote the arts in their communities. Here is our region down in the southwest corner of the state. We are one of 11 regional arts councils that cover the whole state of Minnesota, working to get state arts funding out into all corners. So most of our funding does come from the state of Minnesota, with an allocation from the State General Fund, but the majority from the Arts and Cultural Heritage or Legacy Fund. We also receive funding from the McKnight Foundation, which we use for our artist grants, and from memberships and donations from around our region. To be more specific about our region, applicants need to live in one of the following counties: Big Stone, Chippewa, Cottonwood, Jackson, Candy, Ojai, Lac-Qui-Parle, Lincoln, Lyon, McLeod, Meeker, Murray, Nobles, Pipestone, Redwood, Renville, Rock, Swift, or Yellow Medicine, or in one of two tribal nations, Pejutazizi, Upper Sioux Community, or Chanchayapi, Lower Sioux Community. We acknowledge that the SMOC region occupies the traditional, ancestral, and contemporary lands of the Dakota people. The Art Study Opportunity for Youth program is open to students who will be entering grades 5 through 12. Students need to be living in our region for at least 6 months before applying, and they need to remain living in the region during their grant period. We're looking for students to have some experience in their art form, and that could be anything from visual arts to writing, media arts, cultural arts, dance, music, theater, etc. And the kinds of things a student can do with this grant: they could study with a professional artist one-on-one. They could attend some sort of arts workshop, camp, or other series of classes. Or low-income students could apply for regular weekly lessons like piano lessons. And the grant is available for up to $500. A few things that are not eligible for these grants: a project that doesn't have an art focus, participation in some sort of school or organization band or choir trip, any equipment or supplies that aren't specifically for the project that you're going to be doing, any supplies or activities that are going to be going towards filling some sort of degree requirements. In other words, funding for something that you're doing for school. Also ineligible is the religious socialization of participants or audience, attempts to influence any state or federal legislation, payments of debts incurred before the grant begins, and applicants that might have a past project still in progress or an overdue report that is still incomplete. In the past, out-of-state travel and activities were not eligible because we were using state funds for this grant, but in the last couple of years, we've been able to use non-state funds for this program. So students can now travel out of state for project activities. Also in the past, we used to just have one deadline per year for this program, but we have now moved to monthly deadlines starting August 1st of 2024, and the deadlines will be the first of the month, August through May 2025. And then the earliest date that you can start your project would be the first day of the following month. So for instance, if you applied by August 1st, you could start your project by September 1st. Applications need to be submitted online by 4 p.m. on the deadline date. The system will not allow you to submit after that time. And note that this is a change from previous years when the deadline was 4:30 p.m. You'll need to choose a start date for your project. And in doing that, you'll first want to check what your earliest allowed start date is, which we talked about a little bit. So you can't start anything toward your project before that start date. So that would mean you can't register for a class that you're taking, you can't purchase any supplies. Basically, you can't spend any money before that start date. If you do have something that you need to spend money on before that date, for instance, if you need to put down a deposit on registration and it doesn't quite align with dates, you then could not include the amount of that deposit in your grant request. Also, make sure that your start date isn't the first day of your camp or your class that you're doing. You need to have that time beforehand to register, purchase supplies, etc. You'll also need to choose an end date for your project. You'll want to give yourself plenty of time both to do any work that you're doing, get through any classes or workshops, and also some time to reflect on the project and evaluate how it went. Projects that are awarded this year, fiscal year 25, need to be finished up by June 30th of 2026. So that is the latest end date that you could have. And now we'll go over to our website and look at what resources are available for you there. Here we are on our website, and everything that you need will be under this Grants tab. You'll see first we have a login for our grant system, which we'll look at in a bit, but we also have information about all of the grants available. So we'll go over to our schools and youth grants and scroll down and find our art study opportunity for youth grants. We'll go to the page for that. And here the first thing on the page that's very important are the guidelines for this program. We talked about some of the eligibility things to be aware of, but you'll want to make sure to read through all of this so you know that you're not missing anything. Then this Apply Now button will also take you to our grant system. Then we have our important dates for this project, including draft review, deadlines, when your application will be reviewed, when the board will act on it, and the earliest date that you can start your project. Here's where we'll have the video that we're recording today. Right now, this is the one from the previous year, but that will be replaced shortly once this video is finished. And then you can follow this link to some information about grant workshops happening during the year. And then at the bottom of the page, we've got some helpful documents for you. Here are the guidelines again. We have the application questions in a Word document in case you'd like to work in that first before pasting things into the grant system. We have the scoring criteria so you can see what exactly the reviewers will be looking at when they're looking at your application. And we also have the final report questions available so you can get an idea of what will be involved with that. Next, we're going to head over to our Workshops and Assistance page. Our Workshops and Assistance page outlines all of the ways that you can get help with your application. We have grant support open office hours on the second Tuesday of each month. You can stop by our office in Marshall from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. While you're there, you can talk through project ideas, sit and work on your application with staff there to answer any questions. Maybe you need some help preparing your work samples or working on a final report, but you can just stop in and get the help that you need. We also have some grants Q&A sessions. There are a series of those in person, so look to see if we are coming somewhere near you, and these will be updated as we have specific dates scheduled. We also have virtual sessions available. You can register for those here. And for both of these, you can learn a little bit about all of the grant programs that are available and then have time to ask questions about your specific project and get those answered. This year, we also have a couple of workshops on some specific grant writing topics. First, on reaching underserved and underrepresented communities, and then on grant goals and evaluation, so you can check those out. You can easily schedule some time to meet with me. You can just click this link and choose a time on my calendar, and we can meet by phone, by Zoom, or in person at our office in Marshall. And then here are videos of our past workshops that we've had as we are recording our videos for our fiscal year 25 grants. Those will also appear here. There's one more page with resources for you, and that is our credits and resources page. So we've got links to grant credit lines and logos that you may need to be using for your marketing. Then we've got a sample contract, so you can see what that looks like ahead of time. If your organization is using a fiscal sponsor, there's a sample agreement available here. If you're doing a project where you need a cooperative agreement with your facility owner, there's a sample agreement here for that. And then we've also got some accessibility resources here for you. And now we'll head over to our grant system. That brings us to our login page. You can enter your email address and password here if you already have an account in the system. If you are totally new, you can click Create New Account. If you're not sure whether you or someone from your organization already has an account in the system, you can contact us and we can get that figured out for you. But for right now, we are going to log in. And as we first come into the system, a reminder, if you have also worked as a grant reviewer or panelist, for us to remember to switch your role to applicant. And here we are on our applicant dashboard. So this is where you will come when you log in to the grant system. Unless you are coming in for the first time, then you will be brought straight to this apply page. On the apply page, you'll find a list of all of the grants that are currently available, and you'll want to scroll through and find the one that you're looking for. So here's our art study opportunity for youth. If you want, there's this preview button where you can just take a look at the application without actually starting anything, but we're going to go ahead and hit the apply button. And I'll point out a few buttons at the top of the application that might be helpful. We have Google Translate embedded into the site. So if you need to work in another language, you can use this option and it will translate the interface and all of the application questions into that language for you. We have the Copy Previous Answers button, and if you have worked in the system before, it will bring up a list of your previous applications that you've worked on, and you'll be able to choose a previous application and it'll copy over answers to any questions that are the same between the two applications. Then there is the Collaborate button, and this is a way to invite someone else to come work on the application with you. You would put in their email address and what level of permission you'd like to give them, and a message talking about what it is you'd like them to do. If you'd like somebody to just read it, Maybe you want a teacher to give you some feedback on this. If your project involves working with an artist, you'll want to invite them to come in and put some of their information into the application for you. So you would fill this out and click the invite button. They will get an email and they'll just need to create a password to come into the system and work on your application with you. You'll need a name for your project, and there are some examples here, and then you'll also put in how much you're requesting. You'll probably want to wait to fill this in until after you have completed your budget. We've got links to some of those important documents that we talked about a bit ago, and just some tips for as you're working on your application. I'll point out that the character limit for most of the fields is pretty large, and we're not expecting you to use that all up. We just want to give you enough room in case there's something you have a lot to say about, but don't feel like you need to come up with stuff to fill up the rest of the text box if you've already answered the question. So the first section of the application is all about you. We ask what grade you're in, some demographic information, and then what your experience has been with your art form. How long have you been working on it? Are there any special accomplishments you'd like to share with us? So you can just tell us about the experience that you've had. Then we ask that you share some samples of your work. So depending on what that is, it might be images, audio, video, written work. And we've got some links here to help you resize things, combine files, etc. as you're working on that. New this year, we're asking that if you want to include samples from social media, that they aren't your only samples, because not everyone who will be reviewing has access to things like Facebook or Instagram. So if you do need to include social media links as your only samples that you have, we ask that you make a screenshot of that to upload in some of the other fields, just so everyone can be able to see what it is you are sharing with us. So we have several upload fields where you can attach things, and then also several link fields. And we ask that in the text boxes you describe what it is that you're uploading or linking to. Next, we're asking you about your study opportunity that you're hoping to do. So first, which kind of opportunity are you applying for? And we'll look at both options. When you choose, it'll bring up a couple different questions about the kinds of supporting information you'll want to attach. So we've first chosen a class, workshop, or camp. You start out describing your opportunity, what activities are going to be involved, what artists or other people will be involved, where and when will it be taking place. Then you will put your start and end dates. And then here's the specific information you'll want to enter if you are doing a class, workshop, or camp. You can put in the website and explain it more. We've got some upload fields again if you have something like a brochure that you want to include, an artist resume. We've also got some extra links, maybe some more information about the artists that might be involved, but this is the spot to provide some more information about the class, workshop, or camp that you want to participate in. We'll go back up for a second and change our project type and say that we are instead doing a one-on-one study with an artist. Again, you'll describe your opportunity and dates, but this time this is the place where you'll want to invite the artist you're working with to come in here and fill in some information for you. We ask them to provide their artist resume, a signed note from them that they are agreeing to work with you, and then some samples of their work. So if you are going to be doing a study with an artist, they can come in here and fill out this section for you. So those are the two different options depending on the project type you have. And now we're back to questions that will be the same regardless of your project type. You'll need to come up with some goals for this project. How will this study opportunity help you to grow your skills in this art form? Are there any specific things that you are hoping to improve through this opportunity? Are there techniques? Are you wanting to build confidence? What are you hoping will happen through this opportunity? Then we ask for some information about your budget. And what you'll do is just enter a description of your costs into these fields here. It'll let you type in there, and then you'll put your budget amounts in. And this will add for you. And there's a spot to provide some more information if you'd like to share that about your budget. If you want to explain some of the supplies that you're purchasing or break things out more, you can do that here. We also ask if your project costs more than the maximum grant amount, which was $500, how do you plan to pay for the remaining costs? So once you filled out all of this budget information, you would put your total, if it's 500 or less, up in that request amount field. Otherwise, you can put 500 in there and then explain how you are covering the remaining costs if your project is more expensive. We ask briefly what options for assistance that you might have taken advantage of in working on your application. And then we have signatures. And we have a line for a student signature and then a parent if the student is under 18. Finally, to finish off this year, we are participating in a statewide survey with the other regional arts councils about how our application process is working. So during the first half of this year, you'll see these questions, which will give us some feedback on the process. And these questions don't have any bearing on your application. The reviewers won't see any of this. That will be confidential. So as you get to the bottom here, we have our submit application for when you're ready, but there's also this save application button. As you're working on your application, it will be auto-saving for you, but if you click the save application button, it will bring you to this screen that lets you know which required questions you still need to answer. So right now we have all of them there because we didn't really do anything, but this can help you track your progress. And if you'd like to continue working, you would just hit continue here, but we're going to head back to our dashboard. So now you'll see here's this application that we just started. And if you want to go back in and keep working, you can click Edit Application here. And this is the same place you'll come back if you're awarded a grant, and you'll find your contract and final report. And now we'll head back over to our slides. Now we have some tips for you as you're working on your application. First, make sure to think ahead to choose the best timing for your application. So check out the deadlines and start dates and see what makes the most sense for the timing of your project. Then read the guidelines and criteria carefully. As we mentioned before, we went through most things, but there are probably a few things that are in that written guidelines that we may not have covered. So make sure to take a look at that so that you're not surprised by anything. It's also good to start working on your application early. If you are needing to gather information from other people, if you might have some questions you need time to get answered, just make sure to give yourself plenty of time. Also in the application, you have noticed that a lot of the questions had multiple parts to them, so make sure you are addressing all of those and really answering those fully, that you're not missing any of those pieces. Also, as you're writing, you'll want to keep your answers real clear and concise. As we mentioned before, no need to try and fill up the text boxes if you feel like you fully answered the question. And also, no need for any fancy grant language you might think you need. Just using everyday language is fine, as if you're telling a friend about the project. Another suggestion is to not assume that grant reviewers know anything about you or your project. We have reviewers coming from all around the region, so they may not have heard of your organization or be familiar with you as an artist. So be careful about including acronyms without spelling those out, talking about certain programs without explaining. Just assume as you're writing that the person reading doesn't know anything about what you're doing. And finally, we are here to help, so don't hesitate to contact us with any questions. There are multiple ways to get assistance with your application. You can certainly contact us to talk through your project before you're getting started. Make sure you're under the right grant program. Make sure elements of your project are eligible. You can also get answers to questions about the application as you're working on your project. And finally, we can do a review of your application draft before you submit it. If you let us know up to about 2 weeks before the deadline, we can guarantee that we're able to look through your application, give you some feedback, let you know if you're missing anything, if anything might sound confusing to the reviewers. This does not guarantee funding of your project, but we are able to give you some feedback. So another great reason to start working on your application early in order to have time for that part of the process. So what happens after you submit your application? The first thing is that SMOC staff will review it for eligibility and completeness. And if at that stage we find that something is missing or there's an eligibility concern, you'll have 48 hours to fix whatever that is. And then at that point, the group of applications from the round will go on to a panel of individuals from around our region who will discuss and score the applications based on the criteria for the program, which we'll look at in a minute. And then finally, their recommendations go to our board of directors who make the final funding decisions. And that most often just involves taking the applications in ranked order of score and taking the funding down the list as far as the budget goes. The scoring criteria for Art Study Opportunity for Youth include the student's previous art experience, which is worth 1/3 of their score, and the project's contribution to the student's artistic growth, which is worth 2/3 of their score. In more detail, for the student's art experience, the reviewers will be looking to see if the student shows interest and involvement in the art form involved in the project, and that their previous experience is appropriate to their age level. For growth, reviewers will be looking to see if the chosen opportunity has the potential for growth of the student's skills, if the chosen mentor or opportunity has high artistic merit, and if the opportunity is well planned and financially feasible. After the reviewers have done their scoring, applicants can also be awarded 1 additional percentage point for each of the following criteria that they meet related to SMOC's funding priorities. So if you are a first-time applicant to SMOC, if you are from the BIPOC or LGBTQ communities or a person with disabilities, or if you are from a county that hasn't received as much funding from us recently. So you would have the opportunity to have up to 3 additional percentage points added to your score. If your grant is awarded, you'll need to complete a contract, and we saw where those would be located in the grant system a little bit ago. And then payment of your full grant award will be sent to you after the contract is received, and you'll have an option to receive that electronically or by check. We understand that things happen as you're working on your project, so if it's looking like you may need to make some changes to your original plan while your project is in progress, contact us and we may be able to help with things like extending your project end date, approving some changes to your budget. So no worries if things change, but just make sure to contact us and get those changes approved. You'll be receiving a reminder partway through your project, checking in to see if anything has changed and what kind of changes might require a project change request to SMOC. You'll have a final report due 60 days after the project end date that you have chosen. So once you start your project, it's a good idea to go into that report and check what information you'll need to be gathering. There are some audience demographics questions, for instance. So make sure to look ahead what kind of information you'll need to be gathering during your project. And that's the last of the information that I need to share with you today.
Thanks for joining us for this grant training. Don't forget to take advantage of the options for assistance as you work on your application. Feel free to contact us with any questions you may have. Good luck!